Okay, so I asked ChatGPT to give me the all-time 11 for every single Premier League team. And to be honest, a lot of these answers are kinda weird. So let's just jump right into it. Okay, so the first team is Arsenal, and honestly, this team is pretty sweaty. At keeper, we got David Seaman, and then Lee Dixon, Tony Adams, Sol Campbell, Nigel Winterburn, Patrick Vieira in the midfield with Cesc Fabregas, Robert Pires, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, and Ian Wright. Yeah, that team is probably one of the best all-time teams that has been listed here. Next up is Aston Villa. To be honest, I haven't heard of most of these players. I mean, you got Dwight York, Paul McGrath, but other than that, I don't really think I've heard of any single one of these guys. I'm assuming that this is back when they were really good, like when they won the European Cup, but I don't know that far back. Same thing with Bournemouth. I don't know any of these players except for Josh King and Callum Wilson, and to be honest, I had no idea that Callum Wilson played for Bournemouth. Kinda shocking, so here's their 11. Okay, Brentford. A lot of these players I had no idea had played for Brentford, such as Neil Maupay, Ollie Watkins, James Tarkowski. A lot of recent players because Brentford doesn't have a ton of history. Here's the 11 for them. Okay, next up is Brighton. Bruno Saltor. The only reason I remember this guy is because he was the interim head coach for Chelsea for like a tiny bit. You also got Lewis Dunk, who's kind of shocking. Here's their 11. There's a lot of other players here that could have been included, but I think ChatGPT did not include them just because it was so recent. Like a lot of those players that played for Brighton in the recent years. Okay, next up is Burnley. James Tarkowski makes his second appearance in all-time 11, so that's pretty cool. Other than that, I haven't heard of any of these players. Okay, Chelsea. And this one goes up as one of the best ones as well. I honestly don't think they're as good as the Arsenal one, even though I do think this one is really good. But Peter Cech, John Terry, Desai, Ashley Cole, Branislav Ivanovic, Frank Lampard, N'Golo Kante, Eden Hazard, Didier Drogba, Gianfranco Zola, and Kerry Dixon. Like I said, this team is pretty insane. I do think Arsenal has a slight edge over them though, but this is still probably one of the top ones. Okay, Crystal Palace. Couple names to focus on here. First of all, we got Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back. Amazing. You also got Wilfred Zaha, no party, and that's why Crystal Palace sucks this year. Then Ian Wright, pretty cool. Okay, Everton. You got Neville Southall, one of the GOAT keepers, Seamus Coleman, and then Dixie Dean, one of the greatest English players. They don't have a huge team, but a little bit better than the other ones. Okay, Fulham. Did you know that Edwin van der Sar played for Fulham? Well, yes, he did. They also got Clint Dempsey, too, so this is a pretty decent team. Okay, Liverpool. This team is really good. However, I am slightly shocked by some of these picks. First of all, Ray Clements at keeper, not Allison. And then you got Virgil van Dijk, who I think deserves it. Steven Gerrard in the midfield, Kenny Dalglish, Ian Rush. I'm very shocked that Mohamed Salah did not make this all-time 11. Like, very, very shocked. Either way, this team is pretty good. In my opinion, it doesn't come close to Arsenal or Chelsea, though. And I think that's not because of Liverpool not having history. I just think that ChatGPT did not pick a very good all-time 11 for Liverpool. It definitely could have made a better one. Luton Town. I have no idea who any of these players are. Never heard of a single one of them in my entire life. Manchester City. Okay, this one's pretty good too. Joe Hart as keeper, Pablo Zabaleta, Vincent Kompany, Yaya Toure, David Silva, Sergio Aguero, to name some of the few. I'm also genuinely shocked about some of the picks that did not get placed in this all-time 11. Like Kevin De Bruyne, I have no idea why he is not there. Probably the greatest midfielder in Premier League history, and he's not here. You could also add a lot of the current Man City players too. Okay, Manchester United. This team is insane. Peter Schmeichel, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, Nemanja Vidic, Dennis Irwin, Ryan Giggs, Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Cristiano Ronaldo, Eric Cantona, Wayne Rooney. This was so hard because there are so many players that got snubbed as well. So like David Beckham, Ruud van Nistelrooy, George Best. The list goes on. Like there's so many players that could be in the Man U. This is definitely the best all-time 11 in this entire video I'm going to make. Newcastle's not too bad either. I think the biggest ones that you want to take mind of are David Ginola and Alan Shearer, all-time leading goal scorer in the Premier League history. But there you go, Newcastle. Nottingham Forest. So I had never heard of most of these players, but I looked them all up, and a lot of them go back to when Nottingham Forest had won the European Cup back in like the 70s. I'm sure they were fantastic players back then. I've just never heard of them. Also, Roy Keane. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Roy Keane is Nottingham Forest legend. Sheffield United. To be honest, never heard of a single one of these players. Sheffield doesn't have a huge history, so I don't know. Tottenham Hotspur. Okay, this team is honestly not that bad. Pat Jennings in goal, Danny Blanchflower, Glenn Hoddle, Paul Gascoigne, Gareth Bale, possibly one of the greatest British players ever and the greatest Welsh player ever. Jimmy Greaves, the legend. Harry Kane, one of the best strikers ever. Tottenham honestly has a really good all-time 11. Okay, West Ham. You got Bobby Moore at center back. And so that team is already super good for that player alone. So, okay, and the last one is Wolves. And for some reason, they decided to list Billy Wright 3 times. So I guess he was that good. In a 3-4-3 formation, he's going to be all 3 of the center backs for us. And there you have it. I'm genuinely confused by a lot of these picks. There's been a lot of snubs. I genuinely don't understand why ChatGPT picked these players for their all-time 11, but that's what they told me, so we're going to roll with it. Personally, I think Manchester United has the best all-time 11. Arsenal is going to come in second, and in third place, I'm going to give it to Chelsea. Manchester City and Liverpool, they definitely could have been in the top 3, but I think ChatGPT snubbed a lot of players that deserve to be there, so they don't make the top 3 for me. Check out my channel for more videos like this, and peace.